Hello everybody and welcome to another Stellaris video. Today we're going to be playing with one of the new Civics, Fire Cult. Fire Cult is very interesting because it gives a whopping 500% bonus to Unity, one of the best early game resources in the entire game. But in exchange you need to have very low habitability on the planet. And I immediately thought, what build can get a 0% habitability world guaranteed as soon as possible into the game? And I immediately thought of Shattered Ring. And while I would say a Fire Cult Unity Rush is not quite as good as something like Fortune Enterprises, it's definitely a little bit different than usual and could be pretty fun to play. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be playing on our normal Grand Admiral settings, and here's the tech and growth settings as well. And let's go ahead and get started. So once again, as I mentioned before, right, we need access to a 0% habitability world to get that 500% Unity bonus. And the way I immediately thought to do that was, well, if we start on Ring and we sell off some of our resources, we can literally immediately build the first colony ship and start colonizing a world with just 5% habitability, and then eventually the other ring as well. I don't know why one is 5 and one is 0% habitability. I actually have no idea. That's really strange. Anyways, also we're going to go ahead and look for planets out here in the galaxy, because having an extra planet for energy and minerals respectively is always nice for when we're done ascending. Before we're done ascending, we're definitely going to be focusing on a little bit different resources. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using our capital to maintain a positive trade, which is going to supply us with consumer goods, and then we'll be using our colonies for Unity early on. We do get a level 3 leader as well, so we're going to want to try to get them as soon as possible, just so we can take a look at what traits they have, as that could be quite beneficial to us. The other thing you may have noticed is that we're actually producing a very good amount of alloys and consumer goods in the early game, but this is going to quickly die down as we start to use up our pops. And let's go ahead and set our our stances: isolationist, veneration of states, sacrifice togetherness. We lose 100 pops in exchange for +3 base unity output. So take a look at this. This is going to jump probably to over 70 unity, or 66. Okay, close enough. And then we're going to go on militarized economy of all things, because we're going to be getting our consumer goods from trade, negating our need for other sources of consumer goods. So what we're going to do is just buy some minerals for now. We're definitely going to need to buy quite a bit in order to start reworking our capital into a trade-based. We can't get rid of the mixed industry yet. We need to put our other colony ship down first, and then we can get rid of that. And yeah, we're just going to open mercantile as we normally do, as I think supporting your basic economy with trade is a huge benefit here, because if you need to make consumer goods with minerals, Ringworld simply doesn't have access to extremely good mineral zones, as if you take a look at our minerals, they have a significantly reduced mineral output in exchange for alloys. We're only producing 2.5 minerals per 100 pops, meaning we're basically stuck. We don't have a source of good minerals, so we're going to need to find a planet for that. And sometimes this can be a bit tricky, because of course when you start with Shattered Ring, there are no guarantees. However, I usually find that it's not... What did I do? I just hired a leader. Oh, okay, right. I was like, why don't I have enough unity to do that anymore? One thing you can do is you can leave this menu open until it gives you 1,000 unity, because that's the maximum amount, and this number will just keep adjusting for your first colony until it reaches the max cap of 1,000. So we're probably going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to go ahead and take adaptive economic policies, of course allowing us the consumer benefits trade policy, giving us a bunch of consumer goods. And then on our capital, we essentially want to start building, well, you can demolish this now, because we don't need that for consumer goods anymore. That'll save us just a little bit of minerals, and we can start converting it to a trade zone. I'm going to start with the commercial zone, and then we're going to go ahead and delete the entire mixed industry off of the planet soon after that. Also, it does not look like we're getting very lucky with the planets. Getting even a single planet, but preferably 2 in our home sector, would be very nice. There are a lot of systems to explore, and we're probably a little bit blocked in by the Fallen Empire here, so we definitely have a good shot at being able to find a planet without getting interrupted. So hopefully we get lucky there. And hopefully we can see this number start to update too as our Unity numbers go up. But unlike truly good Unity rushes, like in my opinion, I I think I mentioned this earlier. I think I mentioned that Fortune Enterprises, I believe, is simply better when combined with Death Cult. And wow, we get some great options here. We get Unifier and Environmental Engineer. Um, wow, 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 wow. I think I probably should have taken Environmental Engineer, to be honest, instead of Architectural Interest. But Architectural Interest is so good in the long run. Unifier is good in the short term. Not having an environmental engineer is absolutely a pain when we're playing this, but we'll probably have another chance at finding another environmental engineer at some point, so we're just going to take the risk and not take an environmental engineer. In case you're unaware, ring worlds start with an absolute metric ton of blockers. However, we don't need to clear the blockers right away because we're going to be exploiting the low habitability to make our fire cult workers extremely efficient anyway. The other thing you may have noticed is since we have a lot of alloys compared to a regular build, since our mineral workers are producing alloys, what we're actually going to do is we're going to really hard focus on scanning a lot of systems and building star bases, and then using those star bases for basic economy, because otherwise our basic economy is definitely going to be somewhat of a struggle bus. That does mean we're going to have to skip either prosperity or statecraft, which feels really, really bad. If we want to take something like unyielding in our first 3 traditions. And the reason we would take unyielding is to halve the cost of star bases and allow us to make way more star bases before hitting the cap, as we could use them for our economy. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. We're probably going to skip statecraft, as it's not too important to get our agendas done as soon as possible, with the main reason being, by the way, see how this went from like 400 something to 592 unity. This is going to keep going up all the way to 1,000, which is when I actually want to click the button. So we're just going to have to deal with that screen there for now. And let's hire a second scientist and just start surveying more and more systems. Also, in case we find a dig site, it's of course really, really good, as minor artifacts can boost our unity output by is it 20%? 20%, which is very nice. Although for fire dancers specifically, it's not that important because you go from plus 500% to plus 520%, which is obviously not an actual 20% bonus. Same with Evolving Society that we're doing right now. It gives 510% and then 540%, not 40% of 500%, which would be multiplicative scaling and therefore would be completely insane. I do kind of wish it was like that. That would be ridiculous and awesome at the same time. Anyhow, I think we actually want to go with commercial enterprises here, and then we can go ahead and open up prosperity. We find a hostile probe as well. I think the probe is one of the few things weak enough to be defeated by an early game non-military rush empire, if you so please. I'm not sure if a Corvette 1v1s it, but 2 Corvettes definitely does, so we can send another one over there. That fight might take a while. Warlike, sure, cautious, aggressive. And very, very soon. Oh my god, did I forget to queue up our second colony? I completely did. This is why Yapology can sometimes hurt a little bit, but it's not that bad. It's like 2 or 3 years late. That's okay. So yeah, too much yapping definitely hurt us there. If you had noticed that I hadn't colonized that, I apologize, because that must have been a little bit painful. I thought I queued it up at one point because I thought about it, and then I think I was missing consumer goods. And did I click the right option there? Well, given that we just got an injection of unity, probably, and we can go ahead and take prosperity now, giving us a little bit of extra resources from space, which will be a decent source of our basic resources in full honesty. And on our capital, what we're going to be doing now is we're just going to be converting it, building city districts kind of as soon as we can, and these city districts will give us a little bit of extra unity and a little bit of tech, and most importantly, trade. I never even converted this to a trade zone, so we can go ahead and do that now. Yeah, we have more than enough resources now. And I think we'll have to DQ this, and then, because I need to build the temples on our first ring segment as soon as we can, because we're already going to be late for our second habitable, so that sucks. And it also looks like what's going to suck is we're not going to have a good source of basic resource worlds, because I just don't see any, right? Like, maybe there's some in this little space here. It's pretty unlikely that you get truly 0 planets at all, because you don't really care about the habitability on basic resource worlds. After we ascend, it's going to get to like 40% anyway. Um, and that's kind of more than enough for a basic resource planet. So, anyways, on our first ring segment, we're just going to queue up temples because we already have near 0% habitability. Here we have 5. Um, and then, right, as soon as you build the jobs, you just fill them up, and then you'll have amazing results. So let's go ahead and turn resettlement on as well. As a side benefit, it actually makes our starting faction, yes, you get starting factions, which is quite cool. It only yields 29 unity in this case. But they get a little bit more happy when you allow resettlement, and of course the volcano options probably won't be fulfilled today because there are not a lot of volcanoes in this area, as you can see. So yeah, unfortunately, no volcano gaming today. I'm trying to figure out, by the way, a good way to use or take advantage of the fact that volcano worlds are really good base tech worlds, but they can't be turned into Ecumenopolises while maintaining their original traits, which I think is a little bit of a shame, because what's kind of the point of having a world type that is really good but obsolete by year 50, because that's when most stronger builds would be getting Ecumenopolises anyway. If you're playing on harder tech settings or not playing meta builds, maybe year 70 or 80 is pretty reasonable for an Ecumenopolis, right? And then very, very quickly, all your nice volcano world traits are kind of irrelevant. So I'm not really sure of a good way to take advantage of infernal pops and volcanic worlds yet. However, we'll definitely try out those builds at some point, and maybe we can find something that works, or we can just do a fun playthrough where we don't really care about meta and focus instead on just having fun and making sure that we're getting a good amount of value out of it. But yeah, take a look at these cremator jobs, by the way. 33.8 unity per pop is extremely good. The only downside is, I believe like a Fortune Enterprise build would be like, I'm not sure if it'd be 30 base unity, but it's probably like 20 something, I believe. And then on top of that, they produce trade instead of consuming consumer goods, which of course makes them a pretty big advantage. They have a pretty big advantage over the cremator job in that case. So, like, it's very cool though to be able to take advantage of the specific properties of Ringworld not having good habitability on their first colonies in order to actually provide some sort of benefit, which I do think is quite cool as a concept. So I'm not mad at it, right? Not every build has to be the best. And don't ask me how a aquatic looking plant worships fire. Okay, we don't worry about it. We're not a roleplay player. Yeah. By the way, I'm using this portrait because it is both a aquatic and a plantoid, and plantoids are just really, really nice because they can take rooted if they want. They can take budding. They can, like a pretty good species template base to have. And all right, there was just somebody at the door there. But yeah, what was I doing? Right, I was turning these into resource bases, because even though our basic economy is positive now, as we get deeper into this, it's not going to be. So remember to upgrade your star bases, turn them into basic resource sources, as that's going to be relatively important. Also, I see here that we're getting pretty unlucky, and there are genuinely no planets in our area, which kind of means that we won't be able to militarize until pretty late into the game. We'll still be able to make good tech, but until we get our 4th ring segment, we're kind of just lacking one of the resources. And this also means, do I need to go catalytic? Because using minerals as a base for miners is just awful when you have to use the scrap miners on these ring segments. But the food jobs are obviously not specifically nerfed or changed in any way, which makes the food jobs seem like an appealing option in order to get basic resources, right? Like, we can get energy from trade via trade fed. That's no problem. We can get habitats at some point and start using habitats for basic resources, which is not a problem. But getting minerals will be a big problem in the mid game if we cannot find a single planet. This definitely didn't go like my this didn't really go like my test run where I had like 7 planets in my nearby area. And obviously I didn't expect 7 planets, but I would expect 1 or 2, which can then serve as a basic resource. Worlds which you need to build an early game military. So this kind of is a little bit unfortunate, but also shows the worst case scenario, which I guess I'm happy to show, because I mean, it might happen to you guys while playing the same build, and even though this is obviously, it's like a day one build, I guess it's day two now technically, but I didn't have the chance to play very many Infernal specific things yesterday, so this kind of feels like my first real Infernals game, and we're kind of stuck behind the Fallen Empire and that other empire there. And what do we find here? Another probe. Like, where are the planets? Where are the planets? Come on. If there's like one planet in this area, game changing, right? That's a source of basic resources, and we can then use those basic resources to pop off, right? But if we can't find even one, that could be pretty annoying, as we're also going to be really short on energy until we can get a trade fed. And of course, trade fedding with yourself is much easier than trade fedding with an opponent. And we're going to lose our source of unity as soon as we start upgrading these planets so that they're actually habitable, which could be a problem. However, obviously we don't need to think about that yet, so let's just keep upgrading our planets as is and working on maintaining our basic economy, as we don't want that to go too negative as well. I think the next thing we want to open is Unyielding. Unyielding instead of Statecraft feels a bit blasphemous, as Statecraft is completely busted. However, I think we just need it, because we're not going to be able to reform out of Death Cult until like year 20 for merchant guilds. And the reason for that is because we simply won't have produced enough unity by then to do multiple, or to completely finish our Ascension if we just reform out at year 10. Because yeah, this is just not a powerhouse unity build at the same level of Fortune Enterprise, in my opinion, on like a Habitat or something. And even those builds can't reform out year 10. I think they have to reform out like at earliest like year 17 or 16, so they just prefer to be oligarchic and wait all the way to 20 instead, because oligarchic pops are just a little bit better. Or the oligarchic government type just the plus 2 effective counselor skill is super nice. So anyways, we're going to go Unyielding now. And with Unyielding, does the opener give us the starbase capacity? Is there any more starbase capacity? Yes, so Fortress Doctrine gives us another 2 fortress capacity. So we're just going to immediately start going towards that. And we're going to use our alloys every single time we find a new planet to do the same thing. Food starbase, and then energy credits and food. And this will kind of maintain our basic economy, so we can focus on building way too many temples. Way too many temples. So yeah, take a look at this, by the way. Oh, we forgot to move pops on here. Oh my gosh, I'm wasting so much unity. Yeah, you have to move your pops over, or they won't reproduce, obviously. So yeah, we've definitely been missing out on a lot of unity here. Yeah, we're up to 300. I always like to leave at least 200 civilians, but obviously I'm forgetful, so I just forgot. And this is why I mentioned your basic resources are going to fall off quite quickly, as now we're working basically no basic resource jobs, or will be working none very soon. So yeah, just be cautious about that. Remember to move pops over, or your unity production is not going to look like anything special. And if you do remember to move your pops over, then very quickly your unity production is going to look very special. I'm kind of curious, like, what are these guys at? 35.57 unity per pop. Genuinely kind of funny. Ridiculous. A ridiculous amount of unity per pop. I love to see it. And one thing we should do at this point too is every single time your leaders refresh, just do a scout to see if you see an environmental engineer or a leader who is level 2 or higher and with an open trait, and then you can roll for the environmental engineer trait, because not having environmental engineer is a bit of a struggle when it comes to clearing your blockers out efficiently, when that becomes important on your ring segments, and it will become important pretty soon. Also, as you can see now, our consumer goods start to go negative before our other jobs, and at this point you want to switch from city districts to commercial zones, and you can also use some of your extra trade to just buy some consumer goods. It's definitely a good idea as well. Yeah, as these temples have pretty hefty upkeep, like 21 upkeep, how much per pop? 2.4, I guess it's not as bad as I thought, but since we're going to be working a considerable number of them, it's a good idea to have a comfortable amount. And as you can see, we're up to 500 unity now, which, I mean, without our mistake earlier, we'd be a little bit farther down the traditions now, which would be nice, but it's not a huge deal. And I would not actually recommend building your capital building up right away because the jobs will promote, and you don't want the leaders because we do have repugnant, making our leader jobs slightly less efficient, which means instead we want to just leave them as cremators, and then you won't have to micro any pops. So I don't like to build the capital building right away, even as you get to 1,000 pops, and you just build the temples. Also, as you see, I left one building slot open. This is a deliberate choice. Also, since we're out of housing now, I think we actually should build a housing district. This planet can only support a single district is a crazy thing to see, so we're going to clear a decrepit tunnel. This is why I mentioned if you have an environmental engineer, it's way nicer, but we don't. Maybe I should have taken it when I had the option. But I don't have the option anymore, so now we'll just clear the full price blockers. Not a huge deal. And yeah, we can just kind of cope with that. We don't really want the stability to go down. Obviously, our stability is 92%, which is not a big deal, but building city districts still gives a few cremator jobs, giving us more unity overall, so why not? Field modulation, capacity subsidies are great. Improved deflectors is also good because it allows us to clear one of the important blocker types. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that right now. Also, do we have the specialized research labs yet? No, we don't. Yeah, tech is definitely not the strong suit of this build. However, since we don't have a planet for minerals, I don't think I can build an alloy ring for like a year 30 timing, which you normally could if you have a mineral planet. If you don't have a mineral planet, I don't believe it's a good option too. Because then you'd have to take catalytic as a civic, and then that means you can't take reanimators because fire cult cannot be reformed out of, unfortunately. So yeah, there's a lot of downsides to a build like this, right? But it's since it's fun, we're going to be playing it anyway. We have 7 starbase capacity too, so we're just going to keep spamming those and producing energy and food from these. Like, I wonder, like, what does this say? Produced from starbases 20. That feels a little low. Produced by starbases, jobs, base. We base 20 food. I'm only making 20 starbases from starbases? Oh, I really only have 2. Oh my gosh, I never changed the one on my capital. I was like, that seems a bit wrong. I feel like I have more. But I guess it was right. And then how much are we getting here from starbases? 33. So that's a good chunk of our energy credits. Obviously, we're not making a lot of energy credits, but it's definitely noticeable. Also, more temples. And as we get more temples, as you can see, we're pulling more and more workers off our capital. This is when our alloys start to go down as well. And then, obviously, our economy will become a little bit more sensitive from here on out. And without these star bases, we'd be going broke really, really fast. It is just so expensive to maintain all these jobs that don't have any output besides Unity, essentially, where if I was playing something Fortune Enterprises, they would have their base trade output, which could then be converted to their own consumer goods and produce extra trade, which you could use to buy food or energy. And this is really a huge amount of systems with 0 planets, I have to say. Pretty incredible. I probably won't be strong enough to take over a Grand Admiral no scaling AI right next to us with a build that is a more for fun thing than something truly meta. And I think we should expand the council now. Yeah, probably expand the council and then favored society. At least our unity output is good, right? Do I want to sunder our population? Our pops are pretty happy, so we totally could and try to get some favor. How many pops are sundered even? I don't even know. Let's just click the button and find out. Normally I'd click the opposite and make the Fallen Empire angry, but I think it could be kind of funny to try to get some interesting options there. Maybe we'll get a good inoculation or something, or they'll just reward us with some resources. I'm not really sure. Anyways, I think, do we need Mastery of Nature? Minus 30%, 33% blocker clearing. Probably. Tech Ascendancy would also be amazing for tailoring our techs. And we could check our leaders again. We do get 1 environmental engineer. Okay, this is awesome, because we can take the environmental engineer, and then when you stack it with Mastery of Nature, the percentages are additive. Which is really, really nice, because now the blockers cost very, very little to clear, which is actually a good source of things like energy credits, or minerals and consumer goods, I mean. Not consumer goods, and alloys, because clearing these blockers does give those resources. No, don't buy that many minerals. We want to buy that much energy credits. So yeah, let's start buying energy credits and start getting rid of some of these blockers that don't increase habitability. We specifically want to leave that low. And yeah, we're kind of running out of pops, right? I think we have 1.3k pops here, so we have enough space for one more temple. But everywhere else, right? Like, we could pull out some more basic resource workers, but then we'd really start to struggle with basic resources. As you can see, we're already negative food now too, so could be better. Energy credits could have more of those as well. We're working on it, right? We're working on it. Man, the crazy lack of... We don't have one dig site either, which is absolutely insane looking at it. So we don't get the access. I mean, yeah, 20% is just not the most, right? Yeah, 20%. This is 442 Unity from 1.2 thousand jobs. It just looks funny, right? Like, it looks absolutely amazing. It is not absolutely amazing. It just looks good. It looks impressive. It looks more impressive than it is, if I'm being completely honest here. Yeah, I don't think this kind of Unity output would be out of reach of a Fortune Enterprise build. Maybe it wouldn't be able to build up to it this quickly. But I don't think Ring Worlds build particularly slowly, so maybe it would be fine. I don't know. We'd have to test it out. Year 11. You know what? I'm going to go test out. I'm going to go play another save up until this point with Fortune Enterprise and see how much of the tradition tree we have finished. So at year 11, March, we have 3 tradition trees finished. Let's go ahead and test Fortune Enterprises. Alright everyone, we're approaching the same date, and if we take a look at our Unity production, it's actually a little bit lower. But interestingly enough, we're farther along in our tradition tree, A, because we didn't mess up the build order, but B, because the early game Unity before you get your first colony is quite a bit better with your ability to start building Unity right away on your capital without any downsides. And the thing that is very noticeable is how much better our basic economy is, with a good stash of resources already stashed up, and more importantly, 0 effort in maintaining the balance of any of these. Even though I've been playing on fastest most of the time and not really paying that much attention, it is definitely, I would say, a much more stable Unity Rush, although it has lower lows, as you can see, or lower highs, as, yeah, Fire Cult definitely can create some crazy amount per pop. If we take a look at Koros here, and this is with Favored Society active, we're getting 23 Unity per pop instead of like the 35 or 6 we were getting from Fire Cult. So Fire Cult definitely has its niche and is kind of cool. So let's go ahead and continue that world. Alright, if we're taking a look at the basic economy in this world, yeah, it definitely looks a little bit more sus. We actually have to buy some resources, and even still, they're still going negative in some cases. However, we are making a little bit more Unity, which is cool. And oh, it looks like we had a bit of Unity saved up even. So we're basically at the identical position on the tradition tree though, which is actually kind of awesome. I didn't expect it to be that close, so the fact that it is very, very nice to see. However, once again, right, when we're kind of struggling to maintain our basic economy as much as we are, like, we're going to have to start making some sacrifices here, right? We're going to have to stop buying minerals in order to buy consumer goods and that kind of thing. It definitely feels a lot more rough. On the other hand, at least we're producing a small excess of energy credits, which we can use to start clearing these blockers. These can supply us a good amount of alloys, and we can use those alloys to continue building up the last couple star bases we need to take advantage of that. So my plan here is basically to go full tech on 2 rings, and the reason we're going to be going full tech on both these rings is we don't have a basic resource planet for basic resources, which means we're going to need to rely on either mega structures or things like arc furnaces, right? We have a lot of systems. I believe this is a good arc furnace system, and we probably have a couple others if we look around for them. So we're going to use like leverage tech in order to get minerals, and then make our 4th ring segment an alloy planet as soon as we get access to that. Or we can even convert one of our tech ones after we unlock mega engineering. As you can see, the Unity production of this definitely is pretty crazy once it really gets online. It's just the basic economy, which is like so concerningly hard to maintain. Do we have a single basic resource worker left? No, we don't. which is quite funny. I mean, we could deprioritize the corpse blockers on our, or cremators, my bad. On our capital, they're only making 21, whereas these guys are making 36. Uh, like very, very funny. Very, very funny indeed. So, yeah, we'll get the last couple ones faster, actually, with this amount of Unity production. And then, of course, we'll have to leave this running for like halfway through our Ascension process. And, that will make a pretty big difference. So what I'm going to do now is, you know what? No, I'm going to leave these cremators here, and I'm going to disable them once we start the Ascension process, because the Ascension process will be slower than us collecting the 70,000 Unity or so we need to fully ascend in one go once the situation for Ascension is done. And I think we will be going Bio Ascension here. Bio Ascension is just too good to say no to. And I don't actually know which Ascension path I want to go, but probably Mutation, because I need some pops, so I'll take cloning first and then mutation, so I don't get mutagenic habitability, and that will mean if I ever find any other low habitability planets, they'll be great for corpse blockers, and we won't get the mutagenic habitability trait, which means, unfortunately, we won't have very good habitability on any planets besides our ring segments, but on our ring segments, we're going to have fantastic habitability, which is kind of what we need since our 4 ring segments are going to be 90% of where we can actually house pops for probably most of this game, and we can probably even build a second one at some point. So, anyhow, for now, we're kind of stagnated because we're just out of pops everywhere. So what we are going to do, however, is just remember to build a city district wherever you can, because every build could always use more city districts. So we'll go ahead and at least keep the minerals busy when we remember to, and wait for Ascension start. Oh, we don't even need to wait for Ascension start. We can do it absolutely now. So biomorphosis, of course, we're going to take cloning as the first pick, and this will just give us a nice injection of pops as soon as we get the genomic buildings down. So let's throw that down, and at least our mineral situation is somewhat stable, so we can immediately queue up the buildings, take advantage of the fact I left a building slot on all these planets too, which was a surprisingly good foresight from me, which I usually don't have. So anyhow, we're going to wait until the next part of the situation, and I'll be back then. Hey, and look at that. We were nice to them earlier. Now we get a precursor data cache, plus 25% resources for 10 years, or tech resources for 10 years is pretty nice. And as you can see, our situation has started now that we built the genomic research facilities, and we got all of our planets busy building at least something for a while. And our Unity is down a little bit, but we're going to have more than enough to hit 70,000 by the end of the situation. Okay, this is just pretty interesting. We got a radiant storm like right over all our core systems, and as a result, the mining station output I have is going absolutely crazy. So, like my minerals are really healthy right now. However, due to also all the storms, some other parts of my empire aren't doing so well. So the pop growth is cut quite a bit. Pop growth is still decent thanks to cloning, but it definitely could be better. And we are going to take mutation as our second pick. And this is going to make our Unity production probably jump down a little bit because we're going to get more habitability here, right? Or maybe not. But 600 Unity plus 600, right, is still more than enough to hit the 70,000 or so we're looking for. And yeah, I don't think we're getting quite the same level of Unity per pop, though, or are we? We're still getting 36, which is actually fine, right? And as I mentioned, I didn't build the capital earlier because you're going to get fire oracles. They're going to promote before you notice. And as you can see, they only make 17. So half the amount for the same upkeep and the same number of pops. So it's just not really worth having any elite jobs on your other segments. But I kind of want to build it just so I can start building what I actually want this plan to be for, which is a fully dedicated engineering ring. And then this one can be fully dedicated to physics. And then our capital can be society. The reason why I have more society now than any other tech is we need to finish the gene tailoring technology before we're allowed to progress our situation. So if we have very low society tech, with only 3 planets we have very low society tech, we're going to need, and if we want to trade fed also, it's all the way over here. Or we could try to have trade fed with our neighbor, which is going to be a bit hard because they're fanatic pacifist authoritarian, which is just a bit too different from our ethics fanatic spiritualist egalitarian. It's not fully opposite, but it's definitely not in any particular amount of agreement. So yeah, we'll probably be trade fedding with ourselves all the way out on this ocean world over there. And yeah, I think this is also a cool build. I kind of just want to mention. because A, it's a different kind of unity rush than the corpse blocker ones that we've been using for a while with Fortune Enterprises, but also because you don't have to build Ecumenopolises or upgraded planet types, because you start on a ring world and upgrade the planet type, and then you can upgrade it directly from the decisions, which is kind of cool. As soon as you find Mega Engineering, which means you can save a tradition pick, right? You're going to save an Ascension perk at least, I mean, so that's always pretty nice, is not being forced to go Ecumenopolis. I think Void Dweller builds accomplish the same thing, but Void Dweller builds don't get the same kind of vertical, tall feeling you get from playing Ringworld, where all your core systems are just in your home world, or all your core planets, which I definitely think is kind of cool. I think playing super tall is one of the still alive kind of like wants that a lot of players have, and they simply haven't been able to do it as much as you would have hoped. And we really get wasteful as a trait on our core industrialists. That is very sad. We'll disable some biologists and move them into traders to sustain our consumer goods. Yeah, as you can see, that the resources are a bit of a threat. They continue to be hard to manage. But anyway, we're going to wait for the situation to finish. We're going to take cloning as the remaining pick as well, and then we're going to go from there. Alright everyone, I just wanted to do a little update here. Year 20 and our sacrifice edict has expired. We have exactly 70,000 unity, and this kind of works because at this point we want to drop Death Cult. It is no longer useful to us, and as you can tell, we're also struggling with our consumer goods. What can help with that? Of course, merchant guilds. Don't click meritocracy. I don't know why. I do it all the time. Both start with MER, and I just click, and I often click the wrong one, so do be careful of that. And also, we got a nice head of research here that will help us quite a bit, and the director of trade. And I still like the Manic Priest, because our consumer good usage is going to be so crazy, and we can have them as a scientist, which is also very nice, because extra scientists on your council, as you know, are always nice for that research speed. We're only at 28% now, but that's going to get better as we take statecraft and start leveling them up. And this is also the point where we can kind of drop unity production, because we don't need any more. We have the 70,000 that is required, so we can just go ahead and deprioritize all the unity producing jobs throughout our empire, have them focus on tech, and then also this is the point where we're going to want to start adding habitability, so we can move our blocker clearing leader around as needed and just have them slowly clear out all the blockers that reduce habitability. This will come with a temporary but pretty bad negative amount of amenities and that kind of thing as the pops are reallocating into new job types and that kind of thing. I guess we don't have to deprioritize all of them. We can leave a few for stability purposes. That is definitely a good idea, so they're not just all doing nothing. And yeah, as long as we start clearing these blockers, we're going to start getting some stability and eventually having a good amount of tech, because we want to take as much advantage of this to like just start producing as much tech as possible, because our tech is just not very good right now, right? What are we at? 270 tech, year 21. Definitely nothing to write home about. But we have the opportunity now to start to improve this, and we can use our stronger basic economy to get this ship starting to move towards our eventual trade fed all the way out here. It is far away, guys, but we'll get there eventually. There's only like 6 jumps left, right? So there probably is a closer planet in number of jumps somewhere in the fog of war here, but I haven't been exploring very religiously, unfortunately, so we don't know about it. Alright, and after a bit too long, we're finally able to ascend. We're going to take mutation here, and let's go ahead and finish out this tradition. Just in case, I always do these two first and then these two, and leaving biochemical composure for the backup clones last in case I don't have enough. As I mentioned before, we should have more than enough, and we can go ahead and take the new government catalytic command and cosmogenesis right away. This will help us to stack up the crisis speed quite a bit faster than we normally would, because I don't have to save this spot for something like Ecumenopolize, because our ring worlds are going to serve basically as our Ecumenopolize, right? And then we can go ahead and immediately modify our pops. So, as we would normally do, the first thing we need to do is create our source of exotic gases. And as we normally would do as well, we don't need to put on some of these traits that we would normally use. And instead, we can just put on the inorganic breath trait, and let's find another +2. You can put crystallization on instead of budding, which is genuinely pretty funny. Yeah, there's a lot of great options here. Budding would probably be great because we're going to have a lot of the same pops. So let's just go ahead and do that, and then let's set this as the default for just a little bit, and then allow these to integrate into the default subspecies. So let's go ahead and let that tick, and let's just do 2 months. And this should give us an exotic gas income now. Perfect. As you can see, we have a tiny exotic gas income, and then we have quite a bit of extra trade. Let's just start by buying 15. Since we're not going to be building a tech world or a alloy world for a while, we're going to be really dependent on buying an insane amount of these exotic gases in order to sustain our empire. But I guess we don't even have to use the exotic gas trait here because we're only on ring worlds. We don't need extra habitability. However, it would be nice. So let's go ahead and take these pops, create a new template. Again, get rid of chromalogs. We don't need chromalogs anymore. One thing I like to do is I like to pick up brittle and rooted because they're both -3. Hollow bones is not so good for ring worlds because ring worlds are of course size 25. And of course, we're going to pick up erudite for the researcher jobs. We have a ton of researcher jobs. We're going to take up fertile and robust, and then we'll add one more -2 trait, repugnant, sure, and then probably budding, or how much? Let's see, where's the exotic gas trait? 25% pop growth speed. Yeah, it's just too much to turn down, and we even have a spare trait point left. You know what? That's fine. I'm too lazy to fix that, so let's go ahead and set that as the default. And now we will have this ridiculously efficient pop as our base species, and our pop growth should be looking pretty good now. Yeah, 18 pop growth, very, very nice. And this is only going to increase as we get slightly more of these pops going. And now we can focus on things like building out the city districts and increasing our tech. We're already up to 800 tech, and since we're just going to be min-maxing tech for a little bit since we're lacking planet for militarization, that's kind of the game plan, right? This planet, by the way, has a ton of trader jobs available to us, so we're only going to get more and more consumer goods via trade as this planet fills out, and it's definitely going to be filling out faster than we're actually creating jobs, so we don't have to worry about that. And at this point, we're just kind of home free to really rush tech. As soon as we get, the physics buildings that we need to decrease the upkeep of these tech workers, it would be great, because when we trade fed, inevitably we're going to lose some consumer goods in exchange for energy credits, right? So that trade-off is definitely something that is considerable. I think you get like 40% less consumer goods from trade, which is definitely noticeable, so that 20% upkeep reduction will be pretty nice. And also, even if you're very positive on consumer goods, I would not recommend turning on Utopian or anything like that, because otherwise, like, you're going to lack consumer goods. It's just kind of the way it is. Anyhow, like, these pops are absolutely amazing. As you can see, I think the habitability, even on these suboptimal ring segments, is probably already pinned at 170. Yeah, this is almost maximum. There's only 5% left to go before that hits absolute maximum, which is incredible. I guess we could even drop robust and that kind of thing for other template options, but I don't even know what I would take, to be honest, because like, nothing here is so good that you absolutely need it. I guess you could take something like Uncanny Intuition or Shelled even to get, like, instead of Robust, because you just simply don't need the 30% habitability, but 50 years later lifespan is nothing to scoff at either. Genetic Memory could be cool. I mean, we don't need more habitability, right? Spatial Mastery, don't really need that. Like, a lot of these options we just don't really need. So obviously we don't need natural machinists. We're not working a single industrial job for a while. Once we pick those up, I would probably definitely recommend adding some of those. But before we do, like, why bother, right? We can just continue to add physics jobs the good old-fashioned way, and yeah, wait for pop growth at this point. So I'm gonna do most of this off camera because it's just gonna be repetitive, picking techs, building any tech augmenting buildings that we get, right? Our capital could use, for example, a xenobiological lab. Nothing that special. And when we do something cool, I will try to show it. So yeah, I'll be back. All right, everyone. So our first planet here at year 32 has finally been colonized, and what we're going to immediately do is create a new sector from it and release it as a vassal. You guys have seen me do this quite a few times, but I'll explain it every time in case you're new, because it's a pretty important part to playing a lot of builds that rely on trade, and I think trade builds are some of the best in the game. So after you create a new sector, keep in mind it has to be 5 or more jumps from your home sector, which of course this planet was because it's really far away, and we're going to create a new vassal. So the first thing you're going to want to do, however, is you want to disable auto expand and just remove any systems that you can remove so that it's just a single system sector like this. The reason is you obviously don't want to give your vassal any extra systems, you want to keep those for yourself, and then you can go ahead and create a vassal. You don't have to give it a name or anything. You do have to select a species. So yeah, okay, I probably could have given them a better name than that, but Estas. All right, let's establish an embassy, release subject, and basically just want to click all the green buttons with them, and very, very soon you'll be able to form a fed. I already found the tech because we're kind of flying through the techs with difficulty adjusted tech modifiers off. Of course, tech should be going pretty fast. I have mentioned in the past why I prefer this setting. It just speeds up the game. All the AIs get the same benefits from the tech speed increase, and it just kind of undoes the changes done in the tech beta. In case you guys are unaware, this is a bit of Stellaris history. It seems like it was forever ago, but I think it was only 2 years ago. They decided that they're going to more than half the tech speed in the game, and previously, like the lab base output was what? Oh my god, it was so high. It was like 6, and now it was changed to like 3 or 4. And then they doubled all the tech costs, if not more. And as a result, the tech speed was like a quarter of the original tech speed in the game. And then basically, ever since then, all multiplayer lobbies switched to using a setting called difficulty adjusted tech modifiers off. This essentially made the techs the same cost as before the tech beta, but the base output of tech was always and still is reduced. However, nowadays there's just so many positive modifiers for tech that it's kind of undone a lot of the changes, and we're actually hitting higher tech numbers than pre-tech beta, which is why multiplayer lobbies, for example, have gone from 0.75 back to 1.0 x technology costs. And I've kind of just followed whatever the majority of, I've been negative on energy for a long time while talking. I essentially just follow whatever the most common multiplayer lobbies use, so whatever Weekend Stellaris Club is running and the Montu Server is running, those are the two kind of, in my opinion, major sources of regularly hosted multiplayer lobbies. I kind of copy those settings because I think they make for kind of more time efficient and time respectful games, right? Of course, you can play on harder difficulties, and I did that in my latest video, right? It just means that you finish the tech tree at year 300 instead of 2270 or 2260, right? It's a small difference, but at the end of the day, it just takes you an extra hour to outscale the AI, which is, I guess, fine. But if I could save myself that hour and be faithful to what I would say most of the meta Stellaris players are playing at, that is the choice I'm going to make most of the time. So we're going to avoid laser technology for now, as I really don't need weapons tech. I'm decently friendly with my neighbor. We're cordial. And there's an evangelizing zealot here. They're surprisingly cordial with me. And there's basically no empire above me, so yeah, I guess that means I can kind of chill. I can try to get a federation with these guys as soon as possible. We're already only 4 acceptance away, and we could actually immediately get that acceptance by changing our war philosophy, so let's go ahead and do that. War philosophy to defensive wars. It's so weird to see all 3 subsidies off because I'm not working any of those jobs. That looks so ridiculous. And, oh, okay, well now we need some relations, so we can either get the attitude or the trust. I guess we could offer them a trade deal and see if we can get it through attitude. What do we have extra? What are we going to have extra? Trade, that's about it. Exotic gases were already negative. So let's just, yeah, that's not going to do it. So instead, all we're going to do is we're just going to wait. Ooh, commerce complexes, nice. One thing I do want to do also is I actually want a source of alloys. So I think the funny thing I'm gonna do is I'm literally gonna build alloy foundry plus like crystal plant, for example, right? And that is just gonna give me a source of alloys and crystals, and then I can buy the majority of the ones that I'm gonna actually have. And then eventually I'll get the arc furnaces running, and then once I get the arc furnaces running, I can change my capital society tech, right? We have more society tech than everything else because we are bio Ascension, and then I can change that over to like a alloy zone, so we can actually produce some amount of alloys to kind of get that going. So yeah, awesome. Anti-gravity engineering is something I don't even need, but I'd rather have it than these other tech rolls, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, because we don't need orbital rings. We're on ring worlds already. And in addition to not needing ring worlds, we don't need a key monopoli because we are on ring worlds. So very, very funny. Alright, and just like that, we can finally form a federation. Took long enough. And now we will have energy credits and not enough consumer goods. That is my guess. And of course, there's a purifier kind of next to us, so we do need to be careful about that. Where are they? Let's take a look at that. We need to figure that out before we get absolutely destroyed and wiped off this galaxy. And it also means I probably will need to put a bit of military in, which kind of sucks. Yeah, they're above us, but they're a decent distance away. Usually, purifiers won't deck on you until you're contacting each other. So it's not the biggest concern right now. However, I do want to start working on having alloys because having no alloys is kind of sad. So what we're going to do here is we need to deprioritize some of these biologists, right? We just need to max out the traders, and this should get us back to near, that's not really positive, but it's kind of close enough. We'll just buy 50 consumer goods as we're definitely having a bit of an excess of trade right now. And now we just need some trade modifiers. So one of them is indeed the Conrath Mercantile Union. Hello, Conrath Mercantile Union. You guys know what I like to do. I like to leave a megacorp in the galaxy that helps boost trade because they have trading posts and commercial forms. And if you read this, basically the corporate commercial form that they build on you will increase your base trade output by, I think it was nerfed from like 2 to like 0.75 or something like that. But that's still decent, right? That's like doubling my merchant guild effect almost. Not quite doubling, but pretty close. So that could be pretty nice. And yeah, as you can see, we're not really bleeding consumer goods in any ways. And for food, yeah, the plan is literally just to buy as much food as we use. And oh my gosh, is that a planet? Is that a planet? Beautiful. Because we're going to need a basic resource world at some point. It's not going to cut it to not have a basic resource world. So there it is. You know what I mean? Like, there it is. We have found it. Amazing. It's really taken this long to find a single extra planet. This is a Fanatics Xenophile, so I believe I can settle right next to it with no problems at all. And we're gonna build that colony ship right away and get ready for that. And finally, a basic resource planet within our control. So that's gonna be awesome. That will fix our minerals and our food and allow us to probably change this entire society zone already to a heavy industry, right? The main reason is we've already found the important society tech in the game, which is the third Civic, and the next important one is going to be all the way when our tradition tree is almost finished. By the way, trade is also a great source of unity, so we actually have positive unity now, and of course, we should have done this earlier. We can go to Mercantile, Diplo stance, so we're not literally sitting on negative influence, because that's obviously not a great idea. And we're kind of overstacking on pops a bit, like we're literally having civilian issues, so Autochthon monuments can help with that, giving us a small amount of trade and like what was the other thing? Yeah, unity, right? It gives us unity per civilian, which is nice, and I think we're spiritualists, so we get even more unity than normal from civilians. So this could be pretty helpful because like I could be building labs on these spots, but I'd rather just like wait for more city districts. We do also need to clear more blockers out before we can do that. And we also can eventually fix the malfunctioning reactor, though we need 0 point, which is why I am focusing pretty heavily on physics here, and also why I'm trying not to take laser tech, though I think I'll need it because I'm a bit worried about that purifier above us, so I guess I'll start working on military techs too. 1.5k tech at year 37 is nothing to write home about, but I mean, this isn't a super meta build, it's just fun and tall. Right, it is pretty cool to not need too many extra planets. So That's kind of the main goal with this build now. Not really tall maxing. If I was tall maxing, I'm pretty sure this would be a fine one system build. Just a little bit, it would have a little bit of a problem creating enough alloys, I would say, to become super competitive there. And another thing we're going to need is we're going to need arc furnaces as soon as we can get it, but I don't think I've seen the tech yet, so we're just going to have to keep waiting for that. So yeah, just keep rolling. Alright, it turns out I do not have the minerals to support this heavy industry, so we're going to buy 1,000 minerals now and convert this back because I can't afford this, but this will give me enough to jumpstart all the arc furnaces, which is nice, I guess. Yeah, there's all like 2,000 of these metallurgist jobs. They're more efficient than I thought, to be honest. How much are these giving? Yeah, 10 alloys per 100 is actually surprisingly good, considering I don't have any particularly strong modifiers for them, so I guess we'll just convert that to a trade district, because why not? I don't really need the society tech, so yeah, I think we'll be doing that. And it is nice to be able to finish our tradition tree a bit faster, right? Because that is definitely a bit stalled out right now. We are not doing traditions very quickly. I don't know why I researched gravity snares. Now I'm going to get a million fauna tech options. Oops. That's fine. I've also decided I'm going to create a new trait, a new species portrait with the cranial mega trophy. And probably like budding or something, because I don't really need robust anymore. Or the exotic gas trait, so because we're overcapped on pops, right? And like we have too many pops, we have not enough exotic gases to support them. So yeah, we'll get a new species template as our main template here. Should be pretty nice. And yeah, we finally also have a good amount of trade. As soon as I get rid of this 240 mineral buy, we can tone this down to like a regular 40 or something. And now we're kind of positive on all the important resources. We can even put things like the good old crystal building down, whatever it's called, for trade. This will give plus 20%, which is quite nice. And then on my other two ring segments, it's just more and more tech, right? We get exotic gas refineries too. We should take that before it's too late, right? You never know when it is too late. And yeah, I think we're just waiting on influence here. Yeah, influence is a bit of a struggle when I had to go this far just to get my trade fed up. And these planets are like a million jumps from my capital. Oh, there was one planet in Hylos here. Oh, I mean, it's a size 12, and this is a size 18, so I'm not too worried about that. We'll just wait. Wait for the size 18 antimatter reactor. Nice, that's one step farther to the tier 5 reactor. I don't know why my tech speed, by the way, is only plus 40%. Ah, it's because I haven't had statecraft for most of the game, right? So my leaders are not leveled up. Anyhow, onwards and upwards. Alright, we're approaching year 50 now, and I've kind of finally stabilized my mineral situation whilst having an actual alloy planet. Definitely took longer than I was hoping for, but alas, that is the planetless spawn. I think having just one basic resource planet can kind of change the game completely, because it makes it not that efficient to build actual miner jobs, which can allow us the amount of minerals we need to actually build alloys and that kind of thing. And this is like just in its infancy, right? And it's already producing 100 minerals, and there's no support zones yet or anything good like that. And as soon as we get those support zones down and other things, we should double, quadruple, or even more. Like a size 18 planet can easily produce like what, 4,000 minerals in the late game, and we're gonna have this work some agriculture as well. So I mean, we'll probably end up like 3,000 minerals, 1,000 food, something like that. That's probably our end game goal. And then the rest of our planets, right, will just be continue to be dedicated to what they are now, which is tech and trade / alloys, respectively. And as my mineral situation gets better, I'm just going to enable more and more of these metallurgists. And it'll also probably help with the exotic gas situation. And even though we're moving away from those pops and towards the cranial mega trophy pops as fast as we can, I don't know how many of these I want to integrate, because I want to leave some of these more habitable Kelzens for like the planet out here, right? And this planet can also be used pretty nicely for extracting crystals, I believe it is, or like what kind of resource do we have here? Dust caverns. Is it dust caverns? Is motes or crystals? I forget. Yeah, I've played this game so long and I still forget. It's either motes or crystals though. It's definitely crystals. It's definitely crystals. Right. So. Yeah, we're going to get that going as well soon. I think we definitely need an industrial mining site. There's just not enough districts on this capital. And then we can also build a support zone or two wherever those are. So yeah, just get a nice queue of buildings going over there. We're out of food again. I've not been paying enough attention to that. But yeah, like this planet, for example, is basically done, right? All we have is some supply depots left and then probably a couple labs. And after that, it's just waiting on 0 point power, which we have quite a few of the requisites. It's just a matter of time, if I were to guess. Alright, my next tradition pick was Tech Ascendancy. And the main reason for this is I just want the tailoring. I want to go with particles to increase my chance for the 0 point reactor. Society focus, don't really need one, I don't think. And then I just want a Voidcraft, I believe, for mega engineering and battleships. Because, yeah, we're going to need those to get the mega engineering tech as well. I think we'll take Orbital Ring, just because I want to get that out of the way. And as you can see, we're even capped on alloys now, which is not something I realized. So let's go ahead and spend just a little bit on various star bases and such. Alright, everyone, this is Citadel, which is the last tech before Mega Engineering. In case you're unaware, to get Mega Engineering, you need a few of the following techs. In fact, you need all of the following techs. You need Citadel, which I already mentioned. You need battleships, which I got a while ago. I think it was the first tech roll after switching to Voidcraft. And you also need the 0 point reactor, which was our previous physics tech. So we're basically almost done now. All we have to do now is just not bankrupt ourselves, which has proven to be not as easy as I was hoping for, as we've been dealing with shortages either of food, minerals, or a combination of other resources. Minerals have finally been fixed, and I guess our economy is finally stabilizing out, which is very, very nice. And we also have a decent surplus of alloys. This would allow us to either build up for military purposes, and oh my god, the metallurgic research lab costs like way more motes than it normally does for whatever reason on a ring world. That is perfectly fine. We'll get that soon enough. But yeah, with these arc furnaces coming online, which are basically converting our energy credits to other resources, this is going to be really nice too. Obviously, our energy credits right now don't look great, but once this ring world is upgraded, I think that we probably won't have any major issues with that anymore. One thing to mention is I don't think we even have the galactic market yet, so yeah, we should probably support that and also select a random leader here to represent our interests. And yeah, we should have okay Galcom weight. I mean, it's probably not okay. We have 2.2 thousand. We don't have okay Galcom weight because we have no ships, right? This is the entirety of our fleet right now, which is 4.5k random cruisers that I don't even know why I queued up. Oh, right, because I had full alloys and I didn't want them to burn into the void. But I guess we could add a few of those. We still want to maintain more alloys for when we do get Mega Engineering. I'm surprised we don't get our first roll here. Very often after you get all the prerequisites, and it's after year 50, you often get Mega Engineering on the very first roll attempt because the weight of Mega Engineering is actually not bad. So we'll just have to keep waiting for it, though, which is not a huge deal. We'll just continue to upgrade our infrastructure for other things in the background, and eventually we'll get it. Okay, I gotta say, I'm pretty unlucky tech-wise. It's been like 4 rolls, still haven't got it. I'm next to a Fallen Empire directly, which gives me like a 10x modifier for pre-year 50, chance for battleships, and Citadel I got neither, and now that I have both, I'm still not rolling Mega Engineering, which is kind of unlucky. In case you didn't know, if you want to find Mega Engineering before year 50, there's a 10x modifier that makes it harder to find Citadels and battleships, which are requisites. Right? So in order to do that, if you settle next to a Fallen Empire, however, it removes that or significantly reduces it. I forget the exact modifiers that happens. I'll look it up. Ah, I see what it is. So Citadels have a 10x or 0.1x multiplier for a chance to roll before year 70, which is a lot. And that makes it pretty hard to roll. But if any neighboring country has Citadel technologies, then you have a 10 times more likelihood chance to find it. And every single time, and as you go significantly past year 100, this seems to add more modifiers. Whereas for Mega Engineering, you require Citadels and 0 point power. You don't actually require battleships. That is my apologies. And how that works is when you have a Citadel yourself, that multiplies the likelihood you can roll it by 10 times, or not 10 times, 1.5 times. And if you start on Origin Shattered Ring, you have a 20 times multiplier. So I'm currently sitting at, I don't know if the multipliers add together or multiply together. So I don't know if I'm at a 30, like 5 times multiplier or something like that, or if I'm at a 22 or 21.5 times multiplier. I have no idea if they're additive or multiplicative. They're probably additive, if I were to guess. That's the way multipliers in Stellaris typically work. But that means I'm pretty dang likely to find it, since I do have... Wait, I'm not tripping, right? I do have Citadels. Apparently, if you build one as well, you should get the higher multipliers, so I guess we should have been upgrading all of these as soon as possible. Yeah, Mega Engineering Rushing used to be super, super important in the game, like in 3.14 and previous, and then ever since 4.0 came out, the Mega Structure bonuses are now small enough so that, like, when you're producing 3k tech, how important is it to have a Science Nexus? Well, it's worth basically I think it produces close to 1,000 tech, but most of its value is the 15% tech speed modifier, which is nice, right? Things like Dyson Spheres and what's the black hole one called? I completely forgot what the ones that are built over black holes are called. Matter decompressors, right? Yeah, matter decompressors. I haven't built one in 4.1, I don't think. Like, one mineral planet like this is more than going to cover our needs. I mean, this planet, the orbital ring is not built. I only colonized it like a decade ago. It's not being built up very actively, and it's still going to produce more than enough resources to supply a late game empire. Like an empire that makes 5,000 alloys per month, this single planet can probably sustain that, which is pretty ridiculous to say. But it's true. So anyhow, we continue to have a really, really, really unlucky engineering tech rolls, but we'll be back at some point. Okay, my only guess is that I don't have enough tier 4 technologies research to find mega engineering, which is probably a tier 5 tech, but I'm not actually sure. Because I just haven't rolled it, and with a like 20 something X modifier for a chance to find it, I must just not have enough tier 4 techs, right? So I guess I should click on some tier 4 techs, because that's probably the issue here, which, I don't think I very frequently get to mega engineering, like get all the requisites without having enough tier 4 techs unlocked, which in that case, well, that's a little bit unlucky, but also a little bit unskilled. If I was paying attention to that, that's probably the reason why. In the meantime, right, since we finally have a strong military or economy, right, producing a lot of industrial resources, we can finally upgrade the materials workshop, which has been sitting here at tier 1 for the majority of the game, and now we can finally push that up higher. Also, our planet is getting bombarded, but for some reason the Fallen Empire decided to close borders with us because they don't like us anymore, so I can't even fly over there to stop that. Whenever I get these raiders, I always forget to just click the button that makes them not attack you, which is annoying. I guess that's what you get for not wiping them out. Alright, I completely forgot that you can just go into your contacts and you can just contact them through here and you can pay them off. So yeah, they're no longer bombarding me, but yeah, I just completely forgot you could do that, which is a bit embarrassing. Yeah, one thing to mention is I just don't know why you can't click on their ships and it doesn't hotlink you to their diplomacy screen. Because if you do that with most other things, it works, right? Like if I click on like the Queptilian Chosen, it'll open the diplomacy screen up, but just by clicking on their flag, like no matter where it is. But I don't know why that mechanic doesn't work there. So I thought you couldn't do diplomacy with them after the raiding started, but apparently you can. So yeah, you can just pay them off or whatever you feel like. Yeah, I definitely need that capital upgrade too, because there we go, mega engineering. It must have just been the number of tier 4 techs. That's the only thing I can imagine was holding us up. And as you can see, we're already producing a good amount of tech, and after we get these mega structures repaired, it should be even better. So, anyways, with that being said, I'm just going to now use commands to kind of fully upgrade our... Did I accidentally humiliate myself? I probably did. Yeah, let's do that. Max resources, research all technologies, and now we can repair the Shattered Ring. We're just going to do this with commands to show you guys what a finished build would look like. as it's simply going to take it's going to take like another 30, 40 years at least to get to this point, probably a little bit longer to be honest. But it would be to have one ring that would be um, dedicated to like a final tech build, which would probably look something like this. You would have one maxed out of every basic lab type. This will give us the maximum efficiency from jobs, and then you want to fill out the rest of the space with quantum innovation nexuses, and you still want the research supply depot. Reducing upkeep is that nice. And then you'll also want quite a few molecular revitalization institutes. It's just for every single one of these you get pop efficiency, right? So by filling out all the basic zones with these buildings, oops, that's the wrong kind of medical center. Yeah, you get a decent amount of pop efficiency bonuses, so you kind of want to do something like this. Just upgrade those to max. It's also one of the first things you want to do, because take a look at this. With 1.4 thousand genomic researchers, we have 72 pop growth. So you can kind of see here why it's a super overpowered building, giving you both pop growth and pop efficiency, and then it'll fill out the planet pretty fast, right? And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on our capital, right? We're going to upgrade this to the full shattered ring, and this will just be a great source of either trade or alloys or whatever we really need. So we're going to end up turning this into a dedicated trade ring. We're going to turn one of our trade rings into a dedicated alloy ring, and I'm going to do all of this off camera, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I fully built up all these planets. They're kind of endgame ready to go now. What we've done is we've switched to reanimators, and reanimators is just an amazing civic for late game, as it turns your naval capacity jobs, which are necessary in any real like 25x crisis run or anything like that. As you know, without it, you're just going to be really, really stuck for naval capacity. So you need a good naval capacity world. Might as well get something out of it. And getting unity and research is really, really nice. Also, one of these should be a military academy, but I don't know why I don't have the building, despite having researched all technologies. Don't ask me how that works. I clearly don't have all the technologies. Maybe I can do it again and I'll get it. Or maybe I just don't have it available for some reason. Or it can't be built on a ring world. That's also a possibility. Anyhow, this is the Forge world. This is the research ring, which we only need one of now. And this is the commercial world. The important buildings are, of course, on every planet. You want all... I really don't need Ministry of Production on a planet like this. We can get rid of that. That's a little catch there. And yeah, we'll just go with another one of these revitalization institutes. Take a look at this, by the way. 1,000 society tech, which is nice, but even crazier is the growth you get. 332 pop growth, meaning you can fill up your planets pretty quickly by using these revitalization institutes. They're a little bit annoying to find in the tech tree. You do need a decent amount of society tech. However, once you have it, and you can even diversify. Like, this is probably a better arrangement because it'll probably balance our techs out better. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for these planets to all fill out, and I'll be back when that's done. Alright, everyone, and welcome back. At this point in the game, this is kind of what I would consider to be a done build, you know, double-digit thousands of tech, and like more than a couple thousand alloys per month, and it's all done in basically a single system plus one random resource planet. I don't know what you can do without, like, if you could run this build just on the ring segments and not without the basic resource planet. 2,000 minerals would be a lot to lose out on, and I'm not really sure how you'd run the build without it. And of course, this isn't even a maxed out mineral world, to be honest. I just realized we don't have the Fallen Empire type buildings on here or anything like that, and there's some building districts left, so some more efficiency to be had. But yeah, without a planet like this, I wouldn't know how to do it. We accidentally got bombarded on our capital, so the trade is going to recover a bit. It should probably be a little bit higher. Let's manually add some pops just to speed this up a little bit. And yeah, I think like that's basically all you would do. I would say overall this is a decent build. It's not a meta powerhouse. Everything that this build can do can be done better with Fortune Enterprises on Void Dwellers. The only thing that build can't do is have a single planet produce 10,000 tech or 4,000 alloys or something like that. But with Fallen Empire buildings, like if we're going to take advantage of these, a habitat could maybe get to like, say, not 10,000 tech, but it could get to 4,000 tech or 5,000, and you could just have 2 or 3 of them. And you could definitely get them earlier than you could get these ring worlds online, which have a lot of prerequisites like finding mega engineering and finding enough of the bioregeneration institutes to fill up the planets, whereas Void Dwellers having slightly less, more efficient pops would be a little bit easier to fill the planets up. So, anyways, that's this build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.